Hey everyone, it's Ryder from Skip. It's Sunday, May 9th. Happy Mother's Day. Hope you're doing well and you're having a great weekend. Important video on exclusive information. I spent an hour and a half this morning talking to a high-level person at the SBA who wanted to clarify a number of things, which was incredibly helpful. So I'm going to summarize what we talked about. Number one, how to check if you have been the victim of identity theft related to the SBA programs, which is very important because even if you haven't applied for any of these programs, it can't hurt to check just to make sure. I will go into detail about that. The second thing is around targeted EIDL advances, because according to the SBA, the targeted EIDL advances will, quote, definitely open up to more people. The question is when. I'm going to talk about that, potential timing, and what to keep in mind there. But we know millions of you who didn't apply before December 27th are still waiting for your chance to apply for the $30 billion. And I have a tip on how to get ahead in the queue. Thanks so much for subscribing and tuning in. Be sure to like this video so more people see it and watch until the end. There's a lot in here today. This is jam-packed. First, on the targeted advances, I covered on Friday the new report that 100,000 targeted EIDL advances have been approved. There's a long way to go, and from our SBA contact, they say that there will definitely be funding available for new folks. Basically, the first two groups have already been invited. That's around 4.5 million people who the SBA thought were qualified because they live in a low-income community. Group 1 was folks who received EIDL grants last year. Group 2 was people who didn't receive grants last year but applied before December 27, 2020. Anyone after that hasn't received any invite yet. And the SBA has also been sending out emails to people even if you aren't in a low-income community, okay? This is important clarification. Apparently, by law, the SBA has to send everyone a targeted invite who was in the queue already before December 27th. So in recent weeks, they've been sending out emails to folks who aren't in low-income areas according to their data. The reason the SBA is sending it out to everyone because a lot of people moved over the last year. So if you moved and you were in an area that didn't qualify before, but now you're in a low-income area, they're sending you the invite so you can put in your new business address. So you should definitely double check before filling it out if you qualify, because they're going to check anyway. They just have to send it out by law. You can save some time by checking either on our app or on the SBA's website. A lot of people either haven't been applying for the extra targeted advances or haven't been getting approved. There is plenty of money left, so there's no doubt in the SBA's mind they are going to open up to new applicants. The question is when, but it's coming soon apparently. We're going to keep an eye on it as always. And right at the end of this video, I'm going to share how you can get in the queue earlier than others. You don't have to wait for the announcement. So here's the order we're going to tell people in when the new targeted EIDL grants go live. We're first going to give a push notification to people on our app using one of our trackers. So of course, go download our free app. It's Hello Skip in the App Store. While you're doing it, if you haven't set up our EIDL grant tracker, I haven't talked about it in a while. Of course, we were the first folks to put up a place to check to see if your address qualifies for the low-income community provision. In some rare cases, the data set is different from the official SBA data set. So we also link to the official SBA data set on the app as well. And you can also see new grant opportunities. After we alert people on the app, we're going to alert subscribers here by putting up a quick video. So hit subscribe. And if you applied for an EIDL loan increase, you can track progress on our app as well. Basically, any updates there, anything to keep in mind. Of course, the SBA portal has come a long way and they are giving updates there. The way it was explained to me is that everything should be in sync. When there's a status change on your portal, it should also trigger an email. However, there have been some bumps along the road. One of the biggest examples was there were around 400,000 EIDL advance rejections sent out on the same day. However, because of system changes, it didn't trigger an email. Also, when it switched from approved to error, many of you saw that because the SBA is also checking the do not pay list from the Treasury Department. So in many cases, they did a secondary check and it said, actually, you're on a do not pay list. We have to hold it for now, but you can still apply for reconsideration. You may be on the list in error. I'll leave a link to that above. I covered that in detail a couple weeks ago. But let me start with the Inspector General report. We're all aware that there has been a lot of fraud related to these programs because the amount of funding for both PPP, EIDL is unprecedented, right? The CARES Act was passed and then Congress said, okay, here's $20 billion for advances. Start giving out more loans. So of course, there's a high likelihood of fraud happening when quick systems are put in place. And the mandate was to get out as much funding as quickly as possible. Here's a recap from the report. The report doesn't tell the whole story, which is why I'm going to put in the SBA's perspective. and most importantly, what you should keep in mind. You may think that this fraud has nothing to do with you, but unbeknownst to you, it may affect you. So I just want to clarify that 846,000 applications were flagged as potential fraud. Some of these examples could be someone got a hold of your social or your EIN and they filled out an application and put down another email address. Maybe they put down your actual mailing address, so later on you got something in the mail that said you owe for this loan. You're like, what? I've never applied for an EIDL loan. Those cases happen. There were also cases where the money went to different bank accounts. Maybe the bank account was switched. So lots of cases. The SBA caught many of them, and since this report came out, they've put in concrete steps to identify fraud, to try to contact people who've been affected, and have a process in place if you have been affected, what to do. So the vast majority of these 846,000 were never dispersed. They were caught early on in the process, flagged, no money went out, okay? But for EIDL loans, 112,000 were dispersed, totaling $6.2 billion, and 98,000 advances were dispersed for a total of $468 million. Many of those they've already flagged, they've already contacted, there's already enforcement actions being taken. So if someone got a hold of one of your numbers and applied on your behalf, you might know already, but you might not know. So before I talk about how to quickly check to see if you've been affected by this, I want to summarize what the SBA has done in response to handle reported cases of identity theft. So based on this initial report, on February 2nd, the SBA established a simple process for individuals reporting cases of identity theft for the COVID-19 EIDL program to follow. And I have a letter to show you there specifically what to do. To put this in context, the EIDL funds approved and dispersed that are associated with identity theft represent less than 0.7% of all loan application activity. So less than 1%, just to put it in context, that's still a large number, but in the grand scheme of the program, it's not that much. And the SBA caught much more than actually got out, slipped through the cracks. And now they have a process in place to maintain and track all identity theft complaints. So the long of the short is, we know there's been a lot of fraud. The SBA has caught a lot. They've put in places to improve things. But in many cases, the victims of fraud still don't know they've been victims of fraud. So if you want to check, there's a letter here. I'm going to link to this below. But let me just say this. The best thing to do is check your credit, check your credit. If you've seen a hard credit inquiry that you don't recognize, and the SBA only used Experian, so it'd be from Experian. If you see a hard credit inquiry, contact the SBA. There's ways to do that here, and they can look up if there's anything attached to your social or your EIN. You can also go to annualcreditreport.com. It's the only authorized source for obtaining free credit reports that consumers are guaranteed by law. Free weekly online credit reports. That's the best thing to do. It's good practice anyway. And if the SBA says, yes, looks like someone used one of your numbers and they stole your identity, you can get in touch with them and they can help not only remove any loan that's attributed to you, but they also can help remove the credit inquiry. You'll have to go through the credit bureau first, and the credit bureau will contact the SBA. The SBA will say, yes, you can remove that credit inquiry. So those are the steps. Bottom line, the SBA has done a lot to prevent new fraud, but it's still worth checking. I'm going to leave all the links I'm mentioning in the description below, and they're also going to be right at the top of our app. Okay, for the reopening of targeted EIDL grants to everyone, the SBA is doing this for EIDL loan applicants. So if you've applied for an EIDL loan, they will prioritize you first. Of course, if you haven't applied for an EIDL loan yet, you can do that at covid19relief.sba.gov. I'll leave the link below as well. Again, only do that if you seriously want an EIDL loan. But what the SBA will do is when they start reviewing Group 3, that is new people who applied after December 27th, they will invite people who've applied for an EIDL loan first, okay? So that's the way you'll get in the queue first. That's today's quick update. There's a lot more I'll be covering this coming week. Stuff I didn't cover today that I heard from our SBA contact that is worth going into, so I'll be covering that tomorrow and throughout this coming week. Be sure to subscribe and like this video and tell others, because this is important information that should be communicated to as many people as possible. Stay well, stay healthy, and I'll see you tomorrow.